With a stress-free 7-0 win over the absolutely dreadful Oakland Athletics last night, the Mariners jumped to a 4-0 record on their current homestand, thanks in large part to Julio Rodriguez. We'll talk about the game, discuss whether or not Julio has a chance at the American League MVP coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, August 29th, 2023. This is Trident and Colby Patned for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks. You can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On. That's LOCKDON. You'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. If you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We want to see you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial. Check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. On the show today, we'll talk about last night's win over the Oakland Athletics, and Colby wants to paint a scenario where Julio could steal the AL MVP award from Shohei Ohtani. But first, Colby, let's start with Bryan Woo, who made his second start since returning from the injured list last night. He goes 6 innings pitched, 69 pitches over those 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, just 3 hits allowed, just 2 hard hit balls. And look, it's the Athletics, but I don't really care about the results on this front. The stuff just looked really good from Woo last night. So what did you think about his night?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting night for Woo. Only 69 pitches, still goes through 6. Obviously, there's a pitch count limit. Otherwise, he would have, gone much further. But hey, you know what? You're trying, even if you could have gone 80, like what's the point of wasting bullets in a game that you have, in hand? So yeah, it was a fast night. It wasn't a short night. It was a fast night for Woo, but the big development in this start was definitely the cutter, which appears to be, or at least last night, it was a legitimate counter to left-handed heavy lineups that teams have run out against Woo recently. So we saw some really good ones. We saw some, okay ones, but it was a pitch, particularly early on when the game was still a little bit close. It was a pitch that he was going to a lot and getting whiffs with. As the game kind of became more and more of a blowout, we did see more fastballs, 4-seam, 2-seam, just Woo throwing strikes, getting quick outs. So the whiff rate did decline as the night went on. But the cutter was a legitimate pitch. Average exit velo on it of 84. He got 4 whiffs on 11 swings on that pitch. That's a pretty good ratio. So yeah, it was a legitimately good pitch. We haven't seen it. This was the most we've seen him throw it. And it pairs really nicely with his 4-seam and his 2-seam. So if he can have this type of cutter going forward, it's a legitimate neutralizer to lefties. We saw him saw a couple guys off with it. We saw him get swings and miss. We even saw him get chases against righties with that pitch. So sometimes it's a little tough to tell the cutter and the slider apart. So I don't know if it was actually 19 cutters to 3 sliders, but anyway you want to slice it, Woo, deployed a legitimate pitch to, counteract lefties. And that's a big development. Now, the question is, can he do it again? Can he do it in his next start? Can he repeat, that cutter or whatever that pitch was? Can he repeat that effectiveness going forward? Because if he can, then Woo has, found at least a reasonable counter to his greatest weakness. And that would be a huge development for the Mariners, either as a starter or maybe in the playoffs as a potential high leverage reliever type.
29% call strike plus whiff rate for Woo last night. I also thought that the sinker looked really nice at times. Just his stuff looked really, really good last night. So again, you mentioned, a moment ago that, you don't want to waste your bullets here in a game that you already have in hand, but we've seen him go 65 pitches, now 69 pitches in his second start since returning from the IL. Do we think that like 70 it might be his cap the rest of the way here? Maybe 80 if they want to push it. Like, where do you think his max is in terms of pitch count from here on out?
I don't know if it's a pitch count thing necessarily because, and this goes back to like the whole innings thing too, right? It's an innings cap and it's like, well, it's really more of a pitch cap. Well, not all pitches are created equal. Not all innings are created equal. So I don't know if it's necessarily a raw, because like if he throws 60 pitches and he's in the 7th inning and he's just 10 pitches an inning, sometimes less, then he's cruising. Like those aren't high stress pitches. So I don't know if it's a pure pitch count thing going forward, but it might be. It'd be great if his pitch count was 70 and he could still get through 6 innings every single time out. But there are going to be times where he's only going to go 4, and the Mariners have to decide, do we push him for a 5th with only 2 days off in the month? And it also does sound like there is a plan in place to skip him once sometime in the month of September in favor of Luke Weaver getting a spot start. So we'll see. Obviously, they're still very cognizant of trying to save bullets from Woo. So how that takes shape, I don't really know. It's pretty interesting though that they are, I don't want to say going to this extreme because it's not an extreme, but Woo's probably not getting a start in the playoffs anyways. So he's probably moved to the bullpen if they indeed make the playoffs. So I don't know what the plan here is. Maybe it's to, just keep it around 60, 70 so that when he comes in and needs to go 2 1/3, he can do that. But I think, we'll see. I don't think you're going to see him push 100 pitches the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously, I think they'll skip him once or twice when they can down the stretch. But yeah, they're going to need some innings out of him because you can't have a guy go out there every 5 days in the middle of a pennant race and go 3 innings. Like that's just not an acceptable outcome. So he's going to have to be efficient like he was last night because they still do need innings, but the Mariners are going to try and protect him as much as they can.
Big night on the offensive side of things from Gino and JP and Teo, and of course, Julio Rodriguez. We're going to be talking about those guys in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Sleeper. Want the chance to win more money with less picks? Head on over to Sleeper, where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and select more or less on their stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right and you could win big. Making your picks is easy and takes only 30 seconds or less. And if you win, you can withdraw your payouts safe and quickly. Use promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON. And you'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. Do it. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. The Mariners and the A's start Game 2 tonight. You can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So JP Crawford got the party going last night in the Mariners 7-run explosion against the dreadful A's. Another leadoff home run for JP. That's his 5th on the year. Now a career high 12 home runs in total on the season. Julio goes 4 for 5. He's the story in this one. Of course, he hits his another home run, 3 straight games with a home run for Julio. Eugenio Suarez with a couple of hits, couple of doubles. Teoscar Hernandez with a couple of runs driven in. He's staying hot. Really good night for the offense. It was kind of a heat check lineup for the Mariners. The bottom of the order didn't really do a whole lot. And Colby, this team really misses Tom Murphy, right?
Yeah. Again, no disrespect to Brian O'Keefe, but going from Murphy to O'Keefe is a massive downgrade. Thankfully, the rest of the lineup has more than picked up the slack for Tom, which does beg the question, when Murphy comes back, and it does sound like it's a matter of when, not if, how dangerous is this lineup really going to be? Because like you mentioned, last night, the bottom of the lineup, really the only part that didn't contribute, 7 of the starters had at least a hit, but Caballero and O'Keefe went 0 for 8 with 3 strikeouts. Each did have a hard hit ball though. So, sometimes bad luck, but the story of the night is definitely the top 5 really for the Mariners. They had let's see, they had 2, 6, 10, 12 hits. 12 of the Mariners' 14 hits came from the top 5. And this is nice because we saw parts of the road trip where the bottom of the order was actually carrying and the top was struggling. So, this is what happens when you face really bad pitching, but also, when you're playing really well and everybody's executing their game plans correctly and their swing decisions are good. You just pick each other up, on different nights. And, JP went 2 for 4, scored 3 runs. Julio went 4 for 5, scored 3 runs, drove in 3. Gino 2 for 4. Teoscar 2 for 4. France 2 for 3. So yeah, it's just one of those things where you have everybody in the top 5 has multiple hits. You're going to score a lot of runs, and that's what happened last night. And the Mariners offense is just cruising right now. And it's easy to dismiss this and say they're facing terrible pitching staffs, which they are. Like Oakland and Kansas City might be the 2 worst pitching staffs in baseball. But when you watch the quality of the at bat, regardless of the quality of the opponent, it gives me some, fairly good, good amount of confidence that they can score 4 or 5 runs a night, even against good pitching staffs. They're not going to do it every single night. They're going to be nights where they struggle, just like Sunday, but they're going to find a way to give their team a chance to win. It's no longer the Mariners get down 2-0 in the first, which they haven't done like in a month. So, but it's no longer like if that happens, well, I guess in Kansas City it happened. You're like, oh, this one's over. Well, no, they have time. The pitching just got to keep them in it, and the offense is on fire. But right now, Julio is overshadowing everybody, including a red hot Teoscar Hernandez, who people just don't care about right now because Julio's on a different planet.
Right. Yeah. Teo's been fantastic. And we're finally seeing that 1-2 punch that we were hoping for between him and Julio. And I mean, the 1-2 punch at the top of the lineup, too, with JP and Julio, that is incredibly dynamic. That is one of the best 1-2 punches at the top of any lineup in Major League Baseball right now. It is a lot of fun when both of those guys are cooking. And it's also nice to see that JP, despite having the concussion, because you don't know, right? With a concussion, you don't know how a guy is going to respond, especially when he was only out for 10 days. How he's going to perform at the plate, and he has just basically picked up right where he left off. It was a little bit of a slow start for him in that White Sox series, but since then he's been excellent. So yeah, just this offense is a whole lot of fun. And also, Colby, to your point, right? It's bad pitching staffs, but how many times have you and I gotten on the show, talked about, they went up against a bad pitcher and they just didn't do what they needed to do against them, right? Like,
yep. Yeah, it's look, hitting in Major League Baseball is incredibly difficult, but there are times in the first 3 months of this year where you are going up against AAA call-ups and like 4A pitchers, and you're struggling to score 2-3 runs. You scored 5 runs in a night, and you're like, wow, offense might be turning things around. And now you look at it, and over the last 3 weeks or so, the Mariners score 5. You're like, kind of an average day for them. Like, so it again. Yes, they're going to face tougher pitching down the stretch. Yes, the offense will go through some kind of struggle down the stretch at some point.
Yep.
But the fact that they're doing what they're supposed to do against bad pitching is a good sign, because they weren't doing that March through June. So the fact that they're doing, and I mean, even then they were about an average offense, league average. The woes of the Mariners offense were a little bit exaggerated, but they are now, I think, top 5 in WRC plus. Which accounts for the ballpark, and they are now inside the top 10 in runs per game overall. So, and we also have to remember Seattle's not a great environment to score runs. It does, the T-Mobile Park does suppress runs a little bit, and that's why WRC plus carries a little more value, at the end in predicting than runs per game, just because there's fewer runs per game scored in Seattle than there is in, say, Cincinnati. Right. But yeah, the offense has been on fire. It's gone from average to good, like legitimately good, maybe even great. And they've done it with, I mean, obviously, look, Julio and Teoscar being like stars, being like 2 of the 5 best hitters in the American League for a month.
Yep. That's
going to raise all the boats, right? That's the tide that's going to lift up all the boats. But
JP's also like a top 20 hitter in baseball in the month of August as well. Like, yeah.
Right. And Cal's certainly contributing with home runs, and they're getting little bits and pieces from everybody else. Obviously, Josh Rojas has been a find in the month of August, at least. So, But I think the big difference here is that when you look at April through June, you're really looking at like Julio's an average hitter, Teoscar's a fringe average hitter, Gino's a fringe average hitter. It was really JP Crawford, and then you hope somebody else got hot. JP Crawford's been the most consistent bat all year. And it's Colton Wong is struggling and AJ Pollock is struggling, and you're getting nothing from DH, you're getting nothing from second, you're getting Ty France has been mediocre at best this year. And it's really like at any one point you had like 3 guys trying to do the job of 9. Right now, you probably have 11 guys doing the job of 9, right? You're getting production from 11, 12 guys at the moment. The only one you're not really getting production from right now is your backup catcher spot. And that's just because Tom Murphy got hurt. You're getting production from the DH now. You're getting production from, all 8 spots in the lineup plus the DH. So yeah, it's just a deeper lineup and there's more options and the bench is better. And it's going to get better when you have Jared Kelenic here in a couple weeks. So, the lineup it's legitimate. There's one fairly easy out in the Mariners' entire roster right now, when properly deployed. So, Dylan Moore has been great since he's kind of got his feet underneath him. Caballero continues to find a way to help you, typically by getting hit by a pitch, but whatever.
Cade stealing a base right after.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Cade Marlowe's he struggled. He's a little bit of the struggle bus the last week or so, but he's still putting up good at bats. He's taking pitches. He
also had that really impressive home run the other day.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, there's still some pop there. So you're still getting a good at bat. Mike Ford has been a lot better the last 10 days or so.
Yep.
There's always a chance he pops a homer. There's a chance he draws a walk. He typically is going to give you a quality at bat. And that's kind of like, if that's the worst that you have, is that like, oh yeah, this guy will at least give you a quality at bat. You're a pretty deep lineup. And that's what the Mariners have right now.
Well, yeah. And you just mentioned it. You're adding more talent to it soon. With Jerry Kelenic, with Tom Murphy. I mean, we don't know how those guys are going to perform coming back off of injury, but still, just on paper, adding those 2 guys who, I mean, Jerry Kelenic was one of the best hitters in baseball in the month of April. Obviously kind of fell off a little bit from, the rest of the way, but was starting to pick it up before the injury. And then Murphy has been one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball. Like, you have a very dynamic lineup and a very dynamic bench. I mean, this is by far the deepest we've seen the Mariners in a very long time, offensively speaking. Very, very long time.
Like, you're adding at worst, assuming these guys get back healthy and they can stay healthy and all that stuff, you're adding at worst 2 league average bats back to your lineup in a couple weeks. And honestly, when properly deployed, they're above league average, Murphy especially. And then like Kelenic is like, we're kind of assuming that Kelenic will come back and he'll just be like what he was in July, which is, draw a walk, hit a home run every once in a while. Maybe we're like, oh, well, what if he's just like the 113 WRC plus guy he was,
what if it's September Kelenic?
But yeah, what if it's September Kelenic? What if he comes back and, all of a sudden he's hitting, a 135 WRC plus, then all of a sudden you're cooking with gas because, and you just,
I think you're going to get a motivated Kelenic too, right? A guy that feels like he led his team. Well, I mean, obviously,
don't lacked for motivation, but yeah,
but I think like, there's going to be an extra chip on his shoulder, right? Because, he feels like he let his team down, and
sure, that could manifest its way in a couple ways. So
yeah, it could.
We'll see how it goes for him. But by the way, can we stop? I saw the emails. I saw the questions.
Yeah.
Am I worried about Jared Kelenick's headspace when he comes back?
No.
Don't be that person.
No, and I'm not worried about messing up the vibes.
No, I don't think Kelenic is poisonous for the clubhouse.
Yeah, calling him egotistical and all this stuff. Look, he made a mistake. He made a very dumb decision. But
at 23 years old.
And he was very regretful of that decision. He learned. I think he learned from his mistake. He paid the price of his mistake by breaking his freaking foot. Like, let's touch grass here, folks. Let's touch some grass.
Careful, your toxic masculinity is showing.
Sure. Yeah.
So, just remember, you are enough.
That's right. That's right. Have you seen that movie yet?
No.
I haven't seen that movie.
I know. I want to see it. I do. Yeah.
By the way, 37,434 people at the ballpark last night on a Monday against the A's.
probably a sellout tonight. Julio Funko Pop night.
Ooh,
Which,
yeah.
by the way, if you guys get an extra, let me know. I think I can put together a very competitive trade package for that
let me
Funko
know.
Pop. Not Ty. Ty doesn't have the stuff that I have.
I
Do you
have
have it?
I have a signed Joel Pinheiro card that I would be more than willing to give you.
I have JP Crawford Funko Pops. I have bobbleheads. I have
One of which you won't give me any of them. You have like 5 JP Crawford Funko Pops, don't you? Like, and you
Yeah.
won't give me one of them.
Well, I gotta save them in case I have to trade 5 for the Julio. So
Right.
yeah. So if you get an extra Julio Funko Pop, let us know. I think we can work out a trade. But yeah, enjoy the game you're going tonight. It's going to be a fun game, even though it's a Tuesday against the Astros. I'd be pretty surprised if it was. Or sorry, yes, Tuesday. That is different.
I wish
Tuesday,
it was against the Astros.
yeah. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I would expect at least 35,000 again.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be too surprised if we got a Tuesday sellout. So have fun. But yeah, let us know. Let us know if you happen to grab an extra.
Yeah, the reason that I wish it was against the Astros is because watching Astros Twitter try and cope with what the Mariners doing right now.
Oh, and Rangers
Awesome.
Twitter too.
And Rangers Twitter, but
Yeah.
mostly Astros Twitter. It is just delicious.
What the Mariners are doing now is unsustainable, but what the Rangers did for the first 3 months is totally who they are. Absolutely.
Right. Did you see the guy that was like, "Oh, the Mariners have been playing Bishop Sycamore for the last 10 games"? The Astros guy, and like literally 3 of the last 10 games were against the Astros.
Yeah. I saw him getting dunked on pretty seriously.
Yeah.
So
it's
fun when it doesn't happen to you.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, the Mariners and the A's playing game 2 tonight. It's Ken Waldachuk versus George Kirby at the ballpark. You can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. If you are not going to the ballpark, check it out. All right, so Julio, 4-hit night last night. That's his 5th 4-hit game of the month of August. This is the most 4-hit games in a calendar month since 1938, Colby. Once again,
decent.
Yeah, once again, Julio doing Ohtani level stuff, but unlike Ohtani, his team actually wins when he does this stuff. So yeah, he now leads the American League in hits, which is insane considering that he was like a league average bat for basically half the season. I mean, listen to this. Julio heading into the month of August was slashing 251, 315, 423 on the year. That's a 107 WRC plus. His overall numbers now, 286, 346, 482. That's a 131 WRC plus. I think he's added like 2 F4, maybe even more. I don't know where he was heading into the month, but it's been a lot. Like, he's been insane. He's obviously going to be the AL Player of the Month winner. But Colby, you told me last night you want to paint a scenario where maybe he gets into the conversation for American League MVP. So tell us about that.
Sure. Real fast. Big Mariner playoff news.
Okay.
Well, Mariner adjacent playoff news.
Okay.
Bo Bichette headed to the 10-day IL with right quad strain. So that is Matt Chapman and Bo Bichette both on the IL now. And former Mariner Mason McCoy selected. He will make his major league debut. You might get to see his first career hit tonight, guy.
Hey, let's go.
So,
yeah, I'm going to Rogers Center tonight. For those that don't know, I'm going to be wearing my Mariners hat. I'm going to go full hater tonight. So.
You can Mason. There's at least a one Blue Jay you can root for though. Mason McCoy.
Go Nats. Go Nats though.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm all about that Natitude tonight.
Anyways, so last night, I'm looking at I'm at work, so of course I'm looking at Julio's numbers and kind of tracking.
You're not doing work.
No, God no.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking around and I'm thinking, hey, you know what? Julio's got a real good shot to finish second in the American League MVP race, which is insane. And then you dig a little deeper in the numbers. Julio is one good month, not even great. Like, he doesn't have to repeat August to get here. But Julio is one good month away from finishing the year with 40 stolen bases, 30 home runs, 100 runs, 100 RBI. And if he does that and he just maintains his current slash line, he will be one of just 10 players in Major League history to have a season that I just described.
Yeah.
Ty, do you have the list? Because it's a pretty impressive list.
Yeah, listen to these names, right? 1990 Barry Bonds, Bonds also did it in 1996. A-Rod with Mariners in 98. So Julio wouldn't be the first Mariner to do it. Matt Kemp in 2011. Howard Johnson in 1989. Vladimir Guerrero in 2002. Eric Davis in 1987. Jose Canseco in 1988. Bobby Abreu in 2004. It's an elite company.
That's a good list. That's a good list.
Good list of players. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, he's at like 80, I want to say 82 RBI and like 84 runs. Obviously he needs 5 stolen bases to get to 40. He needs 6 home runs in the last 31 games. Like these are all very attainable numbers. And then you factor on top of that he's probably the favorite to win the Gold Glove right now. He is one of the best base runners in Major League Baseball. He has the fan power, and his team right now the narrative is that Julio has single-handedly put them in position to win their first American League West in over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
My question is why is it insane to suggest that Julio could take a couple of MVP votes? Because we know the Baseball Writers Association of America, they love narratives, and they love narratives more than they love stats. Shohei Ohtani isn't going to pitch for the next 6 weeks, so that little narrative is gone. He was a good pitcher. He wasn't a great pitcher. Look, if Ohtani was still pitching, like he cruises. And honestly, he probably still does.
He's probably still going to.
Yeah. And he should. Let's be very clear. Of course, Shohei Ohtani is the most valuable player.
Yeah, let's say that real quick.
Right.
Shohei Ohtani is going to win the American League MVP.
Right. Of course he should.
Yeah.
But what if the narrative engine takes over? What if the Mariners continue to play really well in September? What if Julio continues to have a really good year? He's got an outside shot to hit 300, by the way. What if he does get to 30, 40, 100, 100, and he does hit 300, and he does continue to play the Gold Glove defense, and the Mariners do win the American League? You can start to build a narrative where the Baseball Writers Association of America plays their favorite game. What is valuable actually mean? Is it the best or is it the most valuable? How can you be valuable if you don't make the playoffs? Like all that garbage,
right?
Which I hate, but also still happens. It's insane how often that happens with these people who vote for awards. So of course Ohtani should win. Of course he should win.
Yeah.
Do I think Julio is going to? No. Do I think this could get really tight really quick? Yeah, I do actually, because again, the narrative engine drives so much of this award talk. And if Julio is got the Gold Glove in his back pocket, if he's got the Silver Slugger in his back pocket, if he's going 30, 40, 100, 100, if he's hitting around 300, if the Mariners are winning the division, there is going to be a little voice that says, well, what is really valuable? What does value mean? And it's a terrible argument. I hate it, but it's one that they've used in the past. And if they apply it this year, based on how they've applied it in the past, Julio has a legitimate shot to get there. He's the second most valuable position player in the American League by FWAR. He's hard charging. He's probably going to finish at 6 wins this year. And again,
he's already at 5.4. He might finish at 7.
He's added 2 wins just this month alone.
Yeah.
So again, it should be Shohei. It should.
Yeah.
Even if and by the way, what happens if Shohei just says, you know what, October or September 10th, I'm done. I'm going to get the surgery early. I'm just going to sit out the rest of this year. I'm not playing for anything. What if that happens?
Right.
And all of a sudden he's not adding on to his resume, and can Julio catch him with 3 good weeks at the end of the year? He might. So it's funny, 2 weeks ago, I hate Julio Rodriguez because I don't think he should smile when he gets picked off. Like,
clearly, yeah.
I mean, come on.
You hate him. You
I hate his guts,
him.
right?
Yep.
I'm the one guy on Mariners Twitter who unifies everybody because I hate Julio. 2 weeks later, I say, Julio's closing the gap on the American League MVP race. And if he does this, and this, he has a legitimate case to make that he should
stop
be
being so positive, Colby.
And I am insane. I am nuts for even suggesting that the gap could be closing in the American League MVP race.
To be fair, it was like one guy on Twitter, but still,
there was like 3 or 4. It was 3 or 4.
All right.
But still, I think that duplicity there is hilarious. So yeah, again, I'm not saying he's going to win the MVP. He shouldn't. It should be Shohei. what I'm saying is that if he continues to play like this, if he does something historical like he is on pace to do, the gap will close. And if Shohei shuts himself down for the year, what if he struggles for the rest of the year? What if Julio, continues to take off? What if the Mariners win the West? These questions will start to get asked. At the very least, they will be asked. I think if all that happens, Julio still finishes a pretty distant second to Shohei, but I think the gap is closing, and that is the whole point. Julio has put himself on a level where a month ago, 2 months ago, Ty was asking, is Julio even an all-star? Like, should he even be an all-star? And now we're sitting here talking about like, oh, he's probably finishing second.
Yeah.
In the most valuable player race. And that happened in the span of 2 months.
Like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
7 weeks. Like it really clicked for him when he hit that game tying home run in Minnesota. That's when it really started to kick into high gear. And that was exactly 30 games ago. I was trying to look this up because I was like, because he's OPSing 1206 since that day. And I was like, all right. So I went on StatHead. I tried to look it up. I tried to see like how many people have OPS that high over a 30 game span. It's actually a lot. Like there's people that have gone like 1,500 over that kind of span. I think Edgar did that a couple of times, by the way.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I saw Edgar a couple of times on that list. I was pretty surprised because like this feels like it is like something that hardly anyone has ever done, but actually a lot of people have done this. But still, like Julio is on.
Have they done it with the home runs? Have they done it with the stolen bases? Have they done it with the defense? Have they done it?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like that's what separates Julio here is that it's not just what he's doing at the plate, it's what he's doing on the base pass, it's what he's doing with the glove. He's literally like Ohtani, obviously, like he pitches and he hits and all that, but Julio does everything except for pitch. Like that's like he is elite at every single aspect of baseball aside from pitching. Right now, like that's it.
And Julio, catching fly balls, but
sure, yeah.
Julio also plays a major role in run prevention, just like pitching does, though. So when you look at it, Julio is impacting the game in every way imaginable, every way he possibly can. Yeah, and again, the gap is closing. Like I honestly, I don't think that's insane. I think you're insane if you think the gap isn't closing on Ohtani. Now it's still a sizable gap, but a couple months ago there was no gap because it wasn't a conversation. All Julio has to do is have a good month of September. The Mariners continue to win. They make the playoffs. They win the division, right? Yeah. If they do all of that, Julio's going to finish in second place. Yeah, for the most valuable player award. And if Shohei gets shut down, or if he decides to shut himself down, and he doesn't have 3 or 4 weeks to pad the numbers offensively, that gap can close permanently, and it can get real interesting, real tight. Again, mostly because, and really only because, the group of voters who vote for this type of stuff, while they're getting smarter, still pretty dumb and still pretty arrogant. So we'll see what a
lot of gatekeeping in that group.
Yes,
a lot of yeah. We don't need to get into that whole thing because it also leads into the Hall of Fame discussion and all that. But whatever.
No more arrogant group of people on earth than the Baseball Writers Association of America. Yeah. Just the worst people to hang out with at a party.
It's probably the first half for Julio is probably what's going to ultimately hold him back here. And obviously Ohtani is, has done something that no other player would ever even dream of doing.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. So, it is what it is. But I think Julio definitely has a really good case to make here for second place in the voting, because like, especially if you compare him to someone like Corey Seager's had a more spread out season of production, but of insane production, but he's also been hurt a couple times. So, it's just Julio, especially with the narratives, Julio should have the inside shot here at second place, unless he just falls off a cliff, which there's nothing that suggests that's going to happen here.
No. It's a lot easier to produce over 75 games than it is over 130. So that's the argument against Seager. And the argument against Bobby Witt is that his team is so terrible and he's just not as good as Julio yet.
Right.
So I think Julio's going to finish second.
All right, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, CANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. You can catch the Mariners and the A's tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.